Republicans have been controlling the governor's office since 1995. Can they keep that control now that Governor Rell is out of the race for 2010? The GOP is scrambling to replace their popular standard bearer. And with us today, one of the men thinking of running for governor, he is Oz Griebel, president of the Metro Hartford Alliance, former CEO of Bank Boston, Connecticut. Oz, nice to see you back here again.
Great to be here, Dennis.
And the first question you must get everywhere is Oz your real name? And we know it's Nelson is your real
Right.
name. Where did Oz come from?
It's an old high school nickname. I go back to the Ozzie and Harriet television show days, so that was the easy thing to pick up.
And could look good on a bumper sticker. So why are you thinking of running for governor?
The obvious reason is the state of the economy, where we are with joblessness, the increase in job losses, and I would say the overall attitude, what I would say an anti-business attitude, which ultimately affects job growth. So the idea, we've been working with, we at the Metro Hartford Alliance have been working with a number of the other larger urban chambers to develop an agenda that is going to be pro-growth, pro-job growth, looking at some of the issues in the budget, particularly some of the systemic deficits, structural deficits that are in the budget, and come up with some ideas. And as I've been working on this, it just seemed that it was an opportunity to look hard at this to see whether somebody outside the system could make a difference in creating that vision and putting some specific plans out in front of the electorate as we go forward. How
surprised were you when the governor said she wasn't going to run again?
I wasn't so much surprised as, obviously she hadn't made a decision, so when it came out, I think maybe the timing of it was a little bit of a surprise, but there had been speculation on either side as to whether she was going to run or not.
So let's talk a little bit about, so right now you're sort of in the phase where you're thinking about starting up an exploratory committee. What do you have to learn in the days and weeks to come to decide you want to run for governor?
I think there are a couple of key things. Obviously, I don't have significant name recognition, so trying to lay out a plan, how would I get out to meet people who don't know me, particularly outside of the immediate Hartford area. And there's obviously the issue of finance, raising the money needed to run a meaningful campaign to get your ideas out there. Those are certainly two big ones, but also just talking to people to try to gauge their own perspectives on the issues and how they react to some of the ideas that I've put before them. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and I've been at it seriously for probably maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It looks certainly thinking about it longer than that, but looking at it more aggressively over the last 2 months and try to make a decision in the early part of next year.
And what kind of response are you getting from people when you tell them you're thinking of running?
Well, you get first of all, I think people whom you know will always say nice things to you, encourage you to do it. The test always comes when ultimately you declare and say, I need your help, and either in terms of raising money or in volunteer support and things of that nature, and I'm still a step away from that. But I would say what you hear from people generally, no matter which candidate you're talking about, is a need for change, a need to have a state that is much more focused on job growth. And if you're for job growth, you have to be for business. That's where you're going to attract the private sector capital that's going to come into the state. It's where you have a chance with jobs where you can keep young people. I mean, this is an aging demographic, as we know. How are we going to change that? And so when you put some specific ideas on it to say that the same old way of doing things isn't going to get us out of this mess. And granted, we didn't get into this mess in 1 year. In 1 year, we're not going to get out in 1 year. The idea, the desire to have meaningful conversations about different approaches is generally well received, no matter who's making that argument.
Is the state anti-business right now?
I think what happens in this state a lot of times, Dennis, is that you have a number of drawbacks in this state that's always going to be tough to keep certain businesses here. And I would say the simplistic statement I would make to you is that we don't think that we're in competition. When you look at other states in this country, particularly in the Southeast and the Southwest, their approach to business and to job growth is much more aggressive. I mean, governors go out. I mean, I would say that I think whoever is the next governor of the state has to be the chief marketing officer for the state, has to view him or herself as the chief business development officer for the state. And that means talking to businesses in the state. It means willing to go out and talk to business outside the state. It means willing to be aggressive about trying to get transatlantic service into Bradley. I think those things have to be part of the mindset of whoever the governor is.
Has Governor Rell been good at this?
I think the governor's done a number of very good things. I think what I'm saying is I think the ante has to be raised, and it has to be someone who's I think some of this has to be a little bit instinctive. The desire to get outside of maybe the traditional way of governing and saying, look, one of the things I have to do is understand what businesses of all sizes, large and small, need to be successful in this state. And that requires a lot of face-to-face discussions. It requires bringing people together to talk about the ideas and their needs. And I think it's taking what has gone on here lately and dramatically elevating it.
The other two Republicans in the race right now, we have former Ambassador to Ireland Tom Foley and, of course, Lieutenant Governor Mike Fidelli, both from the Fairfield County area. You would be the only candidate from the Hartford area. How does that help you?
Well, I think generally it probably just helps me in the Hartford area. And obviously,
but they're two populated areas that
populated areas, sure, areas that I have to learn, have to become more. I know a number of people down in Fairfield County, but certainly not. I've not interacted with that part of the state as much as I have in Hartford. Although having chaired the Transportation Strategy Board did give me an opportunity to work with a number of people down there in the business sector and the political sector. So it's not. I certainly have a feel for a number of the issues and the opportunities that Fairfield County offers and that have to be dealt with. Fairfield County is as we all know, where the income tax, just looking at the income tax as one proxy, that is the single most important part of the state, even with a decline in financial services.
Getting more people to move to the state and to stay in the state, to put a cap on that brain drain, they call it, what would your plan be for that?
I think there are a number of things you have to look at that would be part of it. One is making some bold statement about where you want to make investment. I've spent a lot of time in the transportation area, and we all say how important transportation is. One of the things that we've talked about with the Metro Chambers, and the thing I've talked about it with a number of our business leaders, is to go out and look at, do we put a constitutional amendment in that secures transportation funding? What happens right now, as you know, is our transportation funding as a general rule is part of the general operating budget. So it's subject to the political process in a way that doesn't necessarily allow you to predict where the funding is going to come from. If we were to secure that funding and we knew what our priorities were, and the plan that was put out by the Transportation Strategy Board even 8 years ago is a very good model, you would be able to get people, I think, to be confident not only about the fact that you are going to commit to that investment, tie in things like on the rail investments around transit-oriented development, and get some of the construction workers, the construction trades, the opportunity to get back into business. I don't think when you look at the amount of unemployment in the construction industry overall, it's quite significant. And I think a statement like that gets you back into at least saying that the political leadership is going to get behind getting our infrastructure moving in a very concrete, specific way.
Republicans have won 4 gubernatorial elections in a row. Governor Earl, of course, winning the last one in 2006. Do you think it's tough for the Republicans to keep this streak going?
Sure. I don't know if it's so much a Republican. I think, Dennis, I'll just say whoever wins this race, whether the primaries Republican or particularly on the Republican side, but whoever wins the election in November, I think is going to win it based on a platform that demonstrates to the electorate, to the citizens of this state, that there is a plan, there is a vision that leads to job growth, that creates a positive flow for everybody in the state, and that it's based on a realistic approach to a fiscally responsible budget, not just the current one, but going on over the next 2 biennial cycles. I think that's going to be a message that's going to be absolutely critical, and I think a Republican can do it. I know I can convey that message.
Have you had any conversations with Governor Rell or Party Chairman Chris Healy or the other candidates?
I've talked to Chris. I have not talked to the governor at all directly about this, and if I decide to go in, I certainly will be talking to her and others in the party.
And what did Chris say about it? Was he encouraging?
I'd say Chris was encouraging, sure, looking at this. I mean, he's party chair. I think he's looking, obviously, as party chair to get the best candidates. It's very early, and I think that it was an encouraging conversation to at least take a hard look at it.
So early next year for a decision?
Sure.
Oz Griebel, Chairman of the, President of the Metro Hartford Alliance and a potential candidate for governor. Good to see you back here again.
Great to see you, Dennis.
And don't forget, we are on Facebook. You can talk about today's broadcast on my blog, The Hartfordite, on WFSB.com. We'll be right back in a moment.